This is about the truth.
In a world where information is power, few figures have captured the global imagination like Julian Assange.
What is happening here today?
What is happening here today?
Is a culmination of dreams.
In 2006, Assange founded Wikileaks, a non-profit organization that published classified and sensitive information, exposing corruption, war crimes, and the inner workings of powerful institutions. WikiLeaks' groundbreaking releases, such as the Collateral Murder video, the Afghan War Diary, and the Iraq War logs, challenged the status quo and sparked worldwide debates about transparency and accountability. But with great power comes great scrutiny.
WikiLeaks has published the biggest leaks in journalistic history.
Assange sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. For 7 years, this diplomatic enclave became both his sanctuary and his prison, as he continued his work under constant surveillance and the looming threat of extradition to the United States.
Groups whose we expose are attempting to criticize the messenger, to distract from the power of the message.
The world watched as British authorities forcibly removed Assange from the embassy. For over 3 years, Assange languished in Belmarsh prison, his health deteriorating under harsh conditions, while supporters and human rights activists around the world called for his release.
Free Julian now! Free Julian now! Free Julian!
After years of confinement, legal wrangling, and international outcry, Julian Assange is free at last. His journey has inspired a generation of activists and journalists, igniting a movement that continues to challenge the powerful and defend the powerless. After becoming embroiled in the murky world of hacking, Assange saw the world with the veil pulled back. Eyewitness to the contradiction between public statements and the truth that lay on the servers in the back room, Assange looked to change the status quo. Julian Assange founded a news organization in 2006, aimed at publishing information that is in the public's interest, built on the basis of not knowing who the source is. A mission of speaking truth to power. WikiLeaks became notorious in its first few years of publishing. Whistleblowers soon started anonymously sending WikiLeaks sensitive and at times classified information from organizations all over the globe. A blind eye could not be turned to the of power that were being exposed year after year by the newly founded news publishing organization. Revealing Guantanamo Bay procedures. Scientology documents.
With your help, we're gonna win.
Exposing Sarah Palin's violation of public record laws at the 2008 US election. Extrajudicial killings in Kenya. The membership list of the hateful right-wing British National Party. Disclosing Barclays bank tax avoidance. The internet censorship lists. Revealed news of a serious nuclear accident in Iran caused by a cyber attack, hinting that a Stuxnet computer worm carried out the attack, a jointly built cyber weapon by the United States. And the harmful dumping of toxic substances in Africa, called the Minton Report. Culminating in a debate still present in the WikiLeaks saga. Lawyers for the commodities giant, Trafigura, obtained a secret super injunction against The Guardian for further publishing the contents of the Minton Report, bringing into question the privileges guaranteeing free speech established under the 1689 Bill of Rights, statutes that WikiLeaks also upholds. March 15, 2010. Wikileaks publishes a 32-page report on themselves conducted in secret by the United States Department of Defense for exposing human rights violations in Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. equipment expenditure, and the battle over the Iraqi town of Fallujah. Discussed in the document are ways in which the United States can deter any current or former insiders or whistleblowers, their security interests, and the methods for marginalizing the Wikileaks organization. Julian was in view, but what transpired next would put a target on his back. Julian Assange caught the eye of most Americans when Wikileaks published this video on April 5, 2010, sending tremors that could be felt on Capitol Hill. Leaked by an anonymous member of military personnel, the video shows the purported murder of a dozen Iraqi men, amongst them 2 journalists, part of the Reuters news agency. On the 12th of July 2007, having been unable to identify small arms fire in a Baghdad suburb, the United States deployed 2 Apache helicopters to investigate. Through the crosshairs, we see the lead up to the incident, the supposed misidentification of cameras as firearms, the subsequent firing on unarmed civilians, including the targeting of a truck coming to the aid of the wounded men. 2 young girls were also in the truck.
Some of the morning papers. So this is The Guardian from this morning, 14 pages about this topic. Also concurrently in Der Spiegel, 17 pages. The New York Times, I'm not sure how many, International Herald Tribune, and I believe the Telegraph also has it.
July 25, 2010, nicknamed the Afghan War Diary. WikiLeaks releases over 92,000 documents to The Guardian, The New York Times, and German publication Der Spiegel, disclosing friendly fire and civilian casualty incidents in the war in Afghanistan between 2004 and 2009, the scale of which can be compared to the 1970s Pentagon Papers.
There's no doubt in my mind, we'll bring Al-Qaeda to justice, peace or no peace in the Middle East.
We're familiar with groups whose we expose attempting to criticize the messenger, to distract from the power of the message. We have tried hard to make sure that this material does not put innocents at harm.
4 days later, a 1.4 GB insurance file was added to the page. Fearing that Assange or WikiLeaks were in danger, the decryption for the insurance file would be released if either got in harm's way.
I'm often asked this question: what is the most single damning revelation? What is the thing that is easily capturable? The single event, the single personality, the single mass killing. But that is not the real story of this material. The real story of this material is that it's war. It's one damn thing after another. It's clear that it will shape an understanding of what the past 6 years of war has been like, and that the course of the war needs to change. The manner in which it needs to change is not yet clear. It is the most comprehensive history of a war to have ever been published during the course of a war.
Intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning, formerly Bradley Manning, was arrested on May 27, 2010. By March of 2011, Manning was charged with 22 violations, the most serious of which was aiding the enemy, punishable by a death sentence. Concerns by the Obama administration fueled political debate on the basis of stolen government property and the unredacted disclosure of Afghans acting as informers, potentially putting lives at risk. WikiLeaks held back on releasing all of the files in order to review and redact the sources of the information. WikiLeaks, in an attempt to morph the method, requested help from the Pentagon and human rights groups to aid in redacting the names, but received no assistance.
Right over here. Where are we here? Yeah, right here.
The monumental leak was surpassed by what the Pentagon described as the largest leak of classified documents in U.S. military history, dubbed the Iraq War Logs. The release made in October 2010 by Assange's WikiLeaks disclosed just under 400,000.
Because we don't have much time, I won't speak for long. But this disclosure is about the truth. Philip Knightley, the great investigative reporter, an Australian who for the past 30 or 40 years has made the UK his home, said that the first casualty of war is the truth. But the attack on the truth by war begins long before war starts and continues long after a war ends. In our release of these 400,000 documents about the Iraq War, the intimate detail of that war from the US perspective, Iraq, as we can see, was a bloodbath on every corner of that country. The stated aims for going into that war of improving the human rights situation, improving the rule of law, did not eventuate.
In any human disaster, finding out who died and how they died is the overriding public concern. But 7 years on, the public does not have a full account of the terrible human cost of this ongoing Iraq war to the Iraqi people. What we have instead is an incomplete patchwork of stories, pictures, and data gathered by different organizations for different purposes, often published one day and forgotten the next.
During a visit to Sweden, Assange became the subject of allegations that would hang over him for years to come. 2 women claimed to have been by Assange. Questioning ensued, only for the case to be suddenly closed. Julian was allowed to leave the country. 1 week later, the investigation is reinstated. Looking to resolve the issue, Assange asks to be interviewed before he leaves the country, but was told he may leave without one. Some months on, after crossing the Swedish border, authorities issued an Interpol arrest warrant, ordering the detention of the man who'd exposed wrongdoings around the globe. Assange's next battle, to fight an extradition hearing to be sent back to Sweden, fearing a further extradition to the United States, where he faces possible life imprisonment or the death penalty. December 7th, 2010. Assange hands himself in to British police.
Many people believe Mr. Assange to be innocent, myself included, and many people believe that this prosecution is politically motivated.
I think he's got a chance, yes. I fancy them, I do. I don't think it's open and shut. At this point, I'm not convinced that he has committed a crime in the United States.
Finally, after 2 hours, we've heard that the Swedes won't abide by the umpire's decision. They clearly will not spare any expense but to keep Mr. Assange in jail. This is really turning into a show trial.
Give him a fair trial. Due process.
Free Julian now!
Exposing more crimes.
Free Julian now!
Exposing more crimes.
Free Julian now!
Exposing more crimes.
The fact that Julian Assange was refused bail was a gross injustice, and that has been corrected today in a limited way.
I think the attempt is designed to discredit Assange, his credibility, his morals, in order to discredit Wikileaks as an organization. But every organization is larger than a single person within it. And WikiLeaks will survive whatever. So it was a foolish decision to try and discredit him.
During my time in solitary confinement in the bottom of a Victorian prison, I had time to reflect on the conditions of those people around the world also in solitary confinement, also on remand, in conditions that are more difficult than those faced by me. I hope to continue my work and continue to protest my innocence in this matter and to reveal, as we get it, which we have not yet, the evidence from these allegations. Thank you.
I don't have too many fears about being extradited to Sweden. There are much bigger concerns about being extradited to the United States. Those who have been following the case will have heard time and time again repeated statements that no evidence needs to be presented in this case by the prosecution. But to extradite me, no evidence is needed under European arrest warrant. In relation to my bail application, they said they did not need to present any evidence. In Sweden, every single court hearing has been in secret, and we still have not been provided with the evidence. I have provided with not a single page of information in English whatsoever. We don't engage in ad hoc decisions. We have written policy for our public decisions, and that keeps us accountable. And we think that is the way forward in journalism that all news organizations should follow.
I think we'll have to do it, Julian, because we are a bit late.
Okay.
One final question.
I'm under house arrest, so I gotta go.
With some high-profile celebrities and friends backing him, Julian was able to pay the exorbitant bail price of $240,000.
It's very nice to be free for Christmas and to smell the fresh air of Norfolk. Solitary confinement in the bottom of a Victorian prison is a significant experience. In a way, it's an experience I'm glad that I've had. I've never been in prison, but I think it is important for every journalist actually writing about serious matters to be in a prison, to understand what it is like for people in prison around the world. Clearing my name is not the highest task I have. The highest task I have is to continue on with my work. We have also heard today from one of my US lawyers, yet to be confirmed, but a serious matter, that there may be a US indictment for espionage for me coming from a secret US grand jury investigation.
The backdrop for the world's most wanted house guest, the picturesque Norfolk Manor, that is, Ellingham Hall.
Very nice to be amongst good friends in a fresh snow in the English countryside, to have my first martini in a long time. So very, very good. Of course, we have to understand that I am practically under house arrest, but of course personally it's a big improvement compared to being in the basement in solitary confinement. There has been many calls by senior political figures in the United States, including elected ones in the Senate, for my execution, the kidnapping of my staff, the execution of the young soldier, Bradley Manning. This has been a very successful smear campaign so far. But I think its days are numbered, and people are starting to wonder, is what is claimed really true? And if it is true, where's the evidence?
For the past 5.5 months, we have been in a condition where a black box has been applied to my life. And on the outside of that black box has been written the word. That box is now, thanks to an open court process, being opened. And I hope over the next day we will see that that box is in fact empty and has nothing to do with the words that are on the outside of it.
I challenge you, Marianne Nye. Marianne Nye, come to London, come on Friday, subject yourself to the cross-examination by Geoffrey Robertson QC.
In relation to my Wikileaks work, which of course is a separate topic, it goes on, it continues. Every day we are publishing serious content around the world, and especially about the Middle East. And that gives me great heart, as does the ongoing support of the world for my staff and our mission.
February 2011 marks the first loss in Assange's quest to quash the extradition.
What we saw today at Belmarsh was a rubber stamping process that comes as no surprise, but is nonetheless wrong.
That is releasing footage of a helicopter gunship massacre of 2 Reuters journalists.
A rubber stamping process that is a result of a European arrest warrant system run amok. There was no consideration during this entire process as to the merits of the allegations made against me. No consideration or examination of even the complaints made in Sweden. And of course, we have always known that we would appeal. We have always known that in all likelihood we would have to appeal.
Congratulations from an Irishman. I hope you win. I hope you win. Where we hand you, I hope you win. Congratulations. Keep fighting on.
Let's stand up to criticism.
Well then, Julian. Julian.
Julian Assange is innocent.
Manning's case, it's very clear the US government is trying to crack him open with this solitary confinement by causing emotional devastation. I think they're trying to get him to issue a confession or a false confession so they can link him to Julian Assange.
The new charges are very interesting. Mr. Manning has now spent 10 months in solitary confinement, first in Baghdad, then in Kuwait, and now in Quantico, Virginia in the United States. Amnesty International has condemned his treatment, and there are a number of calls for inquiry into it. The charges themselves, these 22 new charges, include a charge which labels him as passing information to an enemy. The naive reading of the charges would have that enemy being Wikileaks, i.e. a publisher. So the United States appears to be setting up these charges for two purposes. Number one, to provide pressure on Bradley Manning. They're trying to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut into confessing some kind of relationship with WikiLeaks in order to embroil us into an espionage case. The other purpose of these charges is to spread across a spectrum of different types of criminality. They've been trying to crack Bradley Manning for months by making his conditions worse and worse. There's been a number of complaints by his lawyers about that matter, and Amnesty International has complained about his treatment. Bradley Manning is not speaking. Bradley Manning is exercising his right to silence, and they're trying to force him into a plea deal. And most legal commentators believe that kind of plea deal would involve him in saying something that would help the United States prosecute this organization for espionage or some other criminal matter that it could be embroiled in. So that is wrong. The requirements given by some of those charges is that WikiLeaks is the enemy of the United States, that a publisher is the enemy of the United States. And nothing in our 4 years of publishing shows that that is in any way true. We publish from all countries who come to us. We are not an enemy of the United States, and it is an against Mr. Manning and an against us to suggest otherwise. WikiLeaks has published the biggest leaks in journalistic history. This has triggered aggressive retaliation from powerful groups. Since the 7th of December 2010, an arbitrary and unlawful financial blockade imposed by the Bank of America, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and Western Union has destroyed 95% of our revenue. It came as part of a concerted US-based political attack that included vitriol by senior right-wing politicians in the United States and high-level calls for the assassination of WikiLeaks staff and myself personally.
November 2011. Assange loses his appeal against extradition.
I have not been charged with any crime in any country. Despite this, the European arrest warrant is so restrictive that it prevents UK courts from considering the facts of a case, as judges have made clear here today. We will be considering our next step in the days ahead. This afternoon, the Parliament of the United Kingdom is considering in depth the matters that arise from various extradition cases in the United Kingdom, including my own. Today, the High Court has decided that an issue that arises from my own case is of general public importance and may be of assistance to other cases and should be heard by the Supreme Court. I think that is a correct decision and I am thankful. The long struggle for justice for me and others continues. Thank you.
The case is destined for the highest court in the land. 7 months on, the Supreme Court upholds the decision to extradite.
It makes the law, to me, seem rather shabby, actually, and I'm not talking about simply because they found against Assange. It is their arguments, which are not based on what MPs understood the law to be when they passed this extradition legislation in 2001.
June 2012. Fearing an extradition to the United States from Sweden for his alleged crimes of procuring classified information, Mr. Assange breaches his bail conditions by walking up the steps of the Ecuadorian embassy, taking refuge inside, giving Assange assurance he could not be detained by British police as long as he doesn't set foot outside.
So, the situation we confront today now is a stalemate. There is a confrontation which is not of our choosing, because the right to claim asylum is the right of any citizen anywhere in the world.
August 19th, 2012. Julian addresses his supporters and the assembled media from the balcony of the embassy with a message for the American establishment.
The US administration's war on whistleblowers must end. I thank President Correa for the courage he has shown in considering and in granting me political asylum. On Wednesday night, after a threat was sent to this embassy and police descended into this building, you came out in the middle of the night to watch over it. And you brought the world's eyes to you. Inside this embassy after dark, I could hear teams of police swarming up into the building through its internal fire escape. But I knew there would be witnesses, and that is because of you. There is unity in the oppression. There must be absolute unity and determination in the response. Thank you.
The Ecuadorians are the only people who have properly looked at the idea that Julian might be threatened, that his rights are being threatened, that he's in danger, physical danger, of being sent to America.
We will not allow Mr. Assange safe passage out of the United Kingdom.
We seem quite incapable of appreciating and acknowledging that in London, Julian Assange has gone to an Ecuadorian embassy and he has got political asylum. And I think that there's an opportunity to reflect on that. And if we are really the tolerant people that we think we are, we should do that.
6 months on from breaking bail, with Christmas fast approaching, Assange addressed the crowds from his window once more.
Good evening, London. What a sight for sore eyes. 6 months ago, 185 days ago, I entered this building. It has become my home, my office, and my refuge. I came here in summer. It is winter now. I have been sustained by your solidarity, and I'm grateful for the efforts of people all around the world supporting the work of Wikileaks, supporting freedom of speech, freedom of the press, essential elements in any democracy. While my freedom is limited, at least I am still able to communicate this Christmas, unlike the 232 journalists who are in jail tonight. It is from the revelation of truth that all else follows. Our buildings can only be as tall as their bricks are strong. Our civilization is only as strong as its ideas are true. When our buildings are erected by the corrupt, when their cement is cut with dirt, when pristine steel is replaced by scrap, our buildings are not safe to live in. And when our media is corrupt, when our academics are timid, when our history is filled with half-truths and lies, our civilization will never be just. It will never reach to the sky.
July 2014. air around the embassy was filled with disappointment as news surfaced that Interpol's arrest warrant would be upheld. Incarcerated inside the embassy for over 2 years now, Assange's hope of freedom was further diminishing.
The reality is Julian Assange is a political prisoner. He's a dissident in our country, and we're just not really used to that. This wouldn't be happening. There wouldn't be these police outside this embassy if it wasn't Julian Assange, if he wasn't a public person. Nobody else would get this.
August 2014. Rumors emerged that the Wikileaks founder may need hospital treatment.
It is an environment in which any healthy person would find themselves soon enough with certain difficulties.
March 2015. After years of no progress, held up in confinement, Swedish prosecutors asked to interview Julian inside the embassy, only for it to be canceled a few months later, according to the founder of the whistleblowing publication. August 13th, 2015. After the legal time limit had passed, 2 of the 3 sexual allegation charges were dropped. The more serious allegation remains. From the moment Assange strode up the steps in June 2012 to October 2015, the United Kingdom have spent in excess of £13 million, an expenditure somehow rationalized by the government. A small victory came to Assange in the form of recognition, having won UN backing. January 2016. A UN working group panel on arbitrary detention supports Assange.
Good afternoon, everyone. So finally, we have the verdict of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. And they issued a very detailed opinion which considers all arguments from Sweden and the United Kingdom. And this decision dispels the myth that Mr. Assange is either a fugitive from justice or that he could just walk out of the embassy. It is a damning indictment of the manner in which this case has been handled.
May 2016. Photographs of a new arrival inside the embassy appear. Given to him by his children, the embassy cat gave a much-needed respite from the political storm surround Assange. November 2016. Swedish authorities interview Assange in the embassy, lasting 2 days.
Yes, we can.
Outgoing U.S. President Barack Obama decides to free WikiLeaks key whistleblower Chelsea Manning, formerly Bradley Manning. January 19th. Assange stands by his offer of extradition to the United States, provided his rights are protected.
In 10 days, the world will witness a hallmark of our democracy. The peaceful transfer of power from one freely elected president to the next.
What are we going to do? We're going to make America great again. You watch. I'm the messenger. I'm just really the messenger. Although I've been a very good messenger, let's face it, right? I've been a pretty good messenger.
January 20th. Donald Trump wins the presidency. In the lead up to the election, Assange is cut off from the world, both physically and technologically. Ecuador cut the internet over fears he may have been meddling in the U.S. elections. April 21st, 2017. The new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, sets his agenda declaring Assange's arrest is a priority.
The persecution of him is completely wrong. The threats against him are completely wrong. They should be withdrawn. He should be freed. He shouldn't have to be imprisoned.
May 19th, 2017.
How do you feel? Today is an important victory for me and for the UN human rights system. But it by no means erases 7 years of detention without charge, in prison, under house arrest, and almost 5 years here in this embassy without sunlight. 7 years without charge, why my children grew up without me. That is not something that I can forgive. It is not something that I can forget.
With one obstacle out of the way, another was just coming into view. With Lenin Moreno in power, who knew the fate of Julian Assange? In the midst of the unrest in Catalonia, Assange tweets his support for independence and accuses Madrid of repression. Having been warned by the new President Moreno not to interfere in Allied politics. Life inside the embassy was becoming increasingly strained. Still bereft of sunlight and cut off from the world, Assange spent some of 2018 in silence as noisy accusations of his ties to Russia's involvement in the 2016 US election were being constructed. March 2018. For the second time, Assange's internet access and communications are cut off, barring any connection to the outside world. October 2018. Assange launches a legal case accusing the newly formed government, headed by Moreno, of violating his fundamental rights and freedoms. Having had new rules imposed on him designed to force him out of the embassy, ruling a week later that legal action cannot move forward. With his rights in doubt, Julian remained at the embassy, awaiting his fate. April 2019. With ties becoming strained between the WikiLeaks founder and the new government, it became increasingly more likely Assange would be extradited. Subsequently, looking at spending the rest of his life rotting in solitary confinement in a United States prison cell. April 10th, 2019. News emerges of an extensive spying campaign orchestrated on Assange.
Let me just begin with telling you the basics. The new and unexpected thing that just came into light in the last few days is that WikiLeaks uncovered an extensive spying operation against Julian Assange within the Ecuadorian embassy. It entails a total invasion of privacy of Mr. Assange. What we have established is that security cameras were used to monitor his every move, his every meeting with visitors.
One thing is absolutely clear. With the new government, Ecuador is not protecting Julian anymore. It's not protecting him as it should, since it granted him political asylum. Quite the contrary. The government is making everything possible to end the asylum. And the only reason why it hasn't happened yet is because the international shame, the historic shame that will be entitled to Ecuador.
April 11, 2019. In the early hours of the morning, to avoid any commotion on the wealthy streets of Knightsbridge, a frail and weak Assange is carried down the very steps he walked up over 7 years ago, after the Ecuadorian government saw fit to invite the British police inside. Seen on Rupley. Media campaigns to discredit the infamous publisher evolved. Leaked videos from inside the Ecuadorian embassy and comments made by Moreno's embassy staff on his personal hygiene gave the government enough ammunition to rid themselves of Assange, handing him over to the British police, a stark contrast to the government that provided his asylum. Meanwhile, in the United States, the indictment showing Julian's charges is unsealed, revealing the charge to be a conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. No new information is disclosed.
Now, you have all probably heard about the indictment and the nature of the indictments, which I think are very revealing about the nature of this entire case. It is based 17, as was pointed out, of the indictments on the Espionage Act, which is an archaic legal framework from the World War I period and has never, in its 102-year history, been used against a publisher and a journalist. Never before.
What is now going on is that the United States is, of course, furious. It's a furious elephant in the room, breaking everything. It's furious and it's violating a lot of fundamental rights.
I have faith in the British justice system, and I think he will argue that this is a breach of his right of freedom of speech, which we uphold to an extent, to throw him to the American wolves who are determined to jail him for a long time. So, yes, I've got faith that the British justice system may prevent that. As to the American justice system, ending up in a Supreme Court in a few years with a majority of Trump appointees, I'm not so sure.
May 1st, 2019. Southwark Crown Court. Assange is handed a 50-week jail sentence for breaching bail.
To get a sentence only 2 weeks short of the maximum sentence is an outrage. It's almost double the sentencing guideline. And may I point out, just in comparison, that the so-called speedboat killer got 6 months for not showing up in court to hear his sentencing for manslaughter. But the fight continues. Tomorrow is the big fight, the start of the big and most important fight, to fight against the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. What is at stake there could be a question of life and death for Mr. Assange.
May 23rd, 2019. Assange is accused of 17 new charges brought forward by the Justice Department. The indictment states that Mr. Assange had repeatedly encouraged sources with access to classified information to steal and provide it to Wikileaks to disclose. No evidence was shown. May 30th, 2019. News is released that Assange is too ill to attend the hearing, resurfacing rumors of his poor health, even signs of psychological torture. June 11th, 2019. United States submit an extradition request. Sajid Javid confirms and signs the request, setting up the extradition case in 2020, the very case he fears most.
This deep disparity with the US is about to be laid bare when the courts decide whether the Wikileaks publisher Julian Assange will be extradited to the US on charges of espionage for exposing war crimes, the murder of civilians, and large-scale corruption. Will the Prime Minister agree with the parliamentary report that's going to the Council of Europe that this extradition should be opposed and the rights of journalists and whistleblowers upheld for the good of all of us?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to comment on any individual case, but it is obvious that the rights of journalists and whistleblowers should be upheld, and this government will clearly continue to do that.
February 24th, 2020. Crowds gather at Woolwich Crown Court in support of the brave public. In January 2021, a British court ruled against his extradition to the US, citing concerns about his mental health and the high risk of if he was placed under harsh American prison conditions. Despite this ruling, Assange remained in Belmarsh as the US government filed an appeal, prolonging the legal uncertainty around his case. Throughout 2022 and 2023, Assange's legal team continued to fight for his release, challenging every aspect of the extradition case. Then, in a surprising turn of events, international diplomatic efforts and growing public advocacy led to a breakthrough.
We hope across the ocean that there are some very uncomfortable people in Washington, D.C. looking at London today and thinking very hard about where to go next, because this does not have to play its way through the courts. We do not have to continue to do this month after month. President Biden could make his legacy to be the president who stops this now, who doesn't let it go any further.
Finally, in June 2024, Julian Assange was granted a reprieve after years of confinement and legal battles. A combination of diplomatic negotiations, legal appeals, and public pressure culminated in his release from prison. Shifting political landscapes and changes in the U.S. administration's stance on whistleblowers and freedom of the press played a crucial role. The international community's growing consensus on protecting journalistic freedom further solidified the case for Assange's release.
In order to win his freedom, Julian pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage for publishing evidence of U.S. war crimes, human rights and U.S. wrongdoing around the world. This is journalism. This is the criminalisation of journalism. And while the plea deal does not set a judicial precedent, it's not a court decision, the prosecution itself sets a precedent that can be used against the rest of the media.
Following his release, Assange returned to Australia, where he has been focusing on rebuilding his life and health after years of confinement. The Australian government, while navigating diplomatic complexities, has provided him with the necessary support to ensure his reintegration into society. Since his return, Assange has remained a vocal advocate for press freedom and government transparency. He has engaged in several public speaking events and interviews, where he continues to highlight the importance of protecting whistleblowers and the free press. Assange has also been working on a memoir, detailing his experiences and the impact of Wikileaks on global politics. Legally, Assange is still navigating a complex landscape. While he enjoys a reprieve from immediate extradition threats, his legal team remains vigilant, prepared to counter any renewed attempts to extradite him to the United States. Internationally, his case continues to influence discussions on the balance between national security and freedom of information. Assange's health has been a primary focus since his release. He has undergone several medical treatments to address the physical and psychological toll of his imprisonment. Public support remains strong, with numerous organizations and individuals rallying around him, ensuring that his voice continues to be heard. While he has been released from Belmarsh prison, he still faces significant legal challenges. The U.S. government may continue to pursue its extradition appeal, seeking to bring him to trial on charges of espionage and conspiracy to commit computer intrusion related to Wikileaks' publication of classified documents. His future legal strategy will not only aim to ensure his personal freedom, but also to continue influencing these broader legal and ethical debates. As Assange and his legal team navigate these challenges, they will do so under the intense scrutiny of a world that remains deeply divided over his actions and their implications for democracy and transparency.